Hello, welcome to One Cool Thing. I'm here with Tom Brandt, our senior hardware analyst at PC Labs. Tom has a laptop in his hand there, as you can see, that he's holding up very diligently. This machine is known as the Lenovo Flex 5G. Now, Tom, we just got this in from Lenovo as a testing sample, and the big part of the name that stands out to us is 5G, kind of one of the hot buzzwords of 2020. Can you tell us a little bit about what sets this laptop apart?
Yeah, so this Lenovo Flex 5G is one of the first laptops to have the Snapdragon X55 cellular modem, which enables 5G speeds in addition to much faster LTE speeds if you are in an area where there is no 5G. And that's really what sets this apart from any other laptop that we've seen recently.
Oh, okay, so basically this has built-in 5G connectivity via Qualcomm modem. The idea behind this is that you would purchase the laptop and it would come ready to go out of the box, sort of like a phone would. Is that how it works?
Yes, you can buy this directly from Verizon. You can just call them up and tell them you want to add this as a device to your line, and that will help you a bit with the otherwise painful $14.99 price tag. Spending $1,500 on a laptop is a lot of money, but yeah, buying it through Verizon can reduce that sticker shock a bit because they'll just add a monthly amount to your bill.
Okay, so $1,500. Yeah, that does sound a little steep, but then again, we haven't gone
It's 5G.
yet. Right, 5G. It's the 5G tax, right? But the idea behind this laptop, for the most part, is that it's a more or less basic productivity level type of machine apart from the 5G. What's
Yes.
going on inside of it? I understand it's also a Qualcomm CPU as opposed
Yes.
in addition to the Qualcomm modem, right?
So basically what happens here is Lenovo has kind of some fairly standard ultra portable laptop chassis that they use for both mid-range and high-end models. The Flex chassis, it's similar to some other Lenovo Yoga devices that we've seen. It actually does flip all the way around, so you can use it as a tablet. But other than that, it's pretty standard ultra portable laptop. Instead of the other notable thing though is it uses a Qualcomm Snapdragon processor instead of an Intel or AMD processor, which means there's no cooling fan. But it also means that because these chips were originally designed for smartphones, you might experience a bit of sluggishness when you're using really intense apps like video creation or things like that.
I see. Yeah, I recall we looked at some earlier models that had earlier Snapdragon, not HCX, but earlier 800 series Snapdragons in them. And I mean, the performance notwithstanding, I also recall that there were some issues at the time around compatibility with certain applications. Could you get into that a little bit?
Yes.
Sort of the history of it, how it is.
Yes. So in order to use the Flex 5G the way that Microsoft and Lenovo and Qualcomm intend it, your app, the program that you are running, it needs to run natively on this Snapdragon platform. That means it needs to be written to what they call ARM64 instruction language, which is kind of complicated jargon for meaning that the software developer has rewritten the app so that it works properly with the Snapdragon processor. It runs natively on the Snapdragon processor. Most common apps already do this. That includes from the Windows operating system itself to all the Microsoft Office suite of apps to most web browsers. But there are still a few specialized apps like 3D content creation apps that will not run natively, and they'll either run very sluggishly in the emulation layer, or they simply are not compatible and will not run at all. So that's kind of the hazard that you have to deal with, is making sure that the apps that you run are compatible. But as long as you go with fairly standard apps like the Edge web browser, Firefox, and Microsoft Word, you should be fine.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question when you mentioned the emulation layer. I assume that a lot of folks have sort of pet apps that they may use that are outside the sort of Microsoft sphere or the the common Adobe sphere. And if you have one of those that you rely upon, is it basically a roll the dice, more or less, as to whether it'll work in emulation, or how?
Yes.
What is the sort of
Yes.
what is sort of the situation with it?
You can kind of tell from the if you're looking at apps to download from the Microsoft from the Windows Store, it will tell you if it's compatible with it, the computer or not. But if you have an app that that you just want to install yourself, that you use, you won't necessarily know if it's compatible. The first time you try to open it, it will say, if it's not compatible, it will say, sorry, this app will not run.
I understand. Well, cool. So you've taken that laptop presumably outside and tooled around a bit with it to see sort of how the 5G works. What has been your experience?
Okay, so so basically the whole point of buying this laptop is for that 5G modem. But right now, we're kind of in the early stages of 5G. And so what the early stages of 5G means is that most carriers, including Verizon, which is the one that this runs on, has implemented 5G coverage in a very limited number of neighborhoods in major cities around the country. And it's not a blanket neighborhood thing like, yes, my neighborhood has 5G or it doesn't. It is street by street and block by block. So in reality, what that means is you might have 5G coverage that you see on the map that's like one street over, and the only way that you can use that is to go out on that street and basically use that outside, because even if you found a coffee shop or something that's on that street, we're in coronavirus, you probably are not going to be able to go in. And so that's kind of the major downside to 5G right now. That said, the X55 modem in this Flex 5G does support the two major types of 5G that we currently have in the US, which is millimeter wave and sub-6, with basically the frequencies below 6 gigahertz. The laptop will connect to both, but right now the millimeter wave is kind of the more prevalent in terms of Verizon's coverage currently.
Got it. So in terms of, like, if you're traveling around with this, right, and presumably you're moving in and out of zones, it'll bounce down to 4G if you go out of a 5G zone.
Yes.
Do you have any experience with how seamless that is or not?
So it's right now, it basically is similar to switching on your phone between, in the old days, between 2G and 3G, between the Edge and the 3G networks. Right now you can see that it is connected to LTE. It says, well, you might not be able to see on the screen, but basically right now it's connected to Verizon Wireless LTE. It says that in the Windows taskbar. That's because I don't have 5G here. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, and the X55 modem actually can increase the LTE speeds that you might be otherwise connected to with a different device. So it basically lifts all boats. Even when you're not connected to 5G, you may experience multi-gigabit speeds from the existing LTE networks that you might not have with your existing devices.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because I was thinking that, probably the use case of this is pretty much like a smartphone, right? You might be on a bus, you might be taking it, from location to location, you're going around an airport, and depending on what zone you're in, whether it's 5G or 4G or different flavors of 5G, it transitioning seamlessly like a phone does from one to the other would seem to be really important. So, cool. So as a laptop itself, what does the sort of feel of it suggest to you? Is there anything comparable that you've held or used? Presumably it's very much meant to be a portable machine because
Yes.
of the 5G aspect.
Basically, this is very similar to laptops that you may have seen or are considering in that $1,000 plus range, whether it's a MacBook or a Dell XPS or one of the countless other Lenovo ultra portables and 2-in-1 convertible laptops. It feels very similar. It's lightweight. It's very thin. It has obviously the Flex 360-degree hinge. It also has very few ports. You're not going to find a full-size USB Type A port. It is USB-C only. The USB-C ports are used for charging. And then Lenovo also puts this handy switch here on the other side that lets you turn airplane mode on as both an acknowledgement of the fact that this is a 5G laptop and perhaps to draw attention to if you don't need the 5G, you can just easily turn that off with that switch. It's a decent laptop. You can get most of these features though for around $1,000, which makes this kind of a 50% markup for 5G.
Got it. Yeah, and it's hard to tell, sort of, depending on the application that's compatible with it and whatnot, what the rough equivalency in terms of like the 8CX CPU is versus a.
I would say Core i3. I would say like, high-end Pentium to Core i3. Honestly, that's a very, very subjective answer. Not based on any tests or anything, but you're going to experience some slight sluggishness. But app startup times might be longer. But once you get into using the app, browsing through websites and things, you probably won't notice much of a difference.
Got it. Yeah, I know. As I recall, with earlier Qualcomm chips, there we had a bit more trouble quantifying sort of the equivalency between these chips and others that are on the market, because a lot of the benchmarks aren't compatible, or those that can run are running in the emulation layer, so it isn't really indicative of.
Yeah, we can't really test this. Basically, what we would be testing with most of the things we use to test normal Windows laptops, we would essentially be testing the performance of the emulation software, which no one cares about.
Right, got it. Well, in terms of like having used it, in the limited time you've had it so far, I mean, have you noticed any specific, sluggishness or snappiness?
It takes longer to start up, and it takes longer to start up intense apps, like big apps. But I was able to open, a dozen browser tabs in Edge with no problem. Overall, it's a mixed bag. But I think for most common tasks, it's fine. But it is, there's still that in the back of your head worrying that, I spent $1,500 on a laptop that might need emulation.
Right. Yeah. No, understood. Yeah, I mean, I guess nobody is, sort of expecting a machine that's so geared towards, maximum portability to be a, sort of powerhouse for rendering or conversion or anything of that sort. But yeah, $1,500 is still, not a cheap laptop by any means. So how does it feel? I mean, it's 3 pounds. It's a 14-inch screen, and about 6/10 of an inch thick. I mean, does it feel like a premium machine?
Yes, definitely. Yes, it's lightweight. This would not weigh down your backpack. I think that this, yes, it's definitely a portable laptop, not like, not in the sense that you can forget that it's in your backpack, basically.
Right, gotcha. Okay, so $1,500. Do we know offhand any of the details of other configurations of it, or is it just come in one SKU?
Right now, it's just the configuration that's sold from Lenovo and Verizon for that $1,500 price, which gets you the obviously the 5G modem and the Snapdragon 8CX processor, but it also gets you a 256 gigabyte SSD and 8 gigabytes of memory.
Got it. Okay, and I realized we just got this in, within hours ago into your hands. So testing the battery formally hasn't happened yet, and based on previous Snapdragons that we've had, it will take a while to run it down. But what's your impression, both of battery life so far and what Lenovo says it should be?
So yeah, during the early Snapdragon laptops, battery life was the key thing that was, set them apart. We're talking about like multi-day battery life, like more than 24 hours. And while we haven't tested this one yet, it's probably going to get there. But in the meantime, other ultra-portable laptops that are powered by Intel chips have caught up to that. And it's not uncommon now for you to see a Core i7 ultra-portable last for close to 24 hours. So the advantage really that the Snapdragon laptops had at the beginning is not as big.
I understand. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how long this one takes there. I don't know how much the HCX consumes versus the earlier Snapdragon 800 series chips in there, but I guess we'll find out. In terms of the other stuff that's in there, storage, I think you said, did you say what the amount was?
Yeah,
was
256 gigabyte SSD.
And actually, one other thing I noticed just from scanning on the spec list of this thing, so it's a 14-inch screen, 1080p, which is pretty standard for a 14-inch screen size, but it's rated for 400 nits, which is interesting in that a machine like this you'd expect to use outdoors, and 400 nits is definitely a step higher than your typical laptop screen. What's your impression if you had to use this, say, out on the patio? Or
you can't use it outdoors. Unfortunately, it's great to, yes, you'd think this would be a great thing to, if I buy this 5G laptop, the only place I can use it is in the park down the street. You need, it's the 400 nits is great, but it's not viewable outdoors. yeah, you basically, like right now I'm inside facing windows, and the level of brightness is up to 100%. It's fine for pretty much any indoor viewing. That I would say that 400 nits is basically the point at which you get, it will be perfectly viewable whatever the conditions are inside, but outside, no guarantees.
No dice, huh? Okay. So even if you take it in the shade under a tree, we're still probably on the edge
Yeah,
of,
it could work in the shade, but how do you know you're going to find shade? It's not a versatility thing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's an easy thing to overlook too when you're looking at a machine that you might be using portably in the sense of running from place to place as opposed to running around inside of a building.
For reference, 400 nits is good, but we've seen 800 nits on laptop screens before. Those are viewable outside.
Right, like a lot of those typical like industrial type laptops that are used by field service personnel and whatnot. Oftentimes have 1,000 nit screens, if I'm not mistaken. So 400 is not quite there, to say the least. So cool. Any other impressions of this machine that you've had? I mean, I know you've only had it a short time so far.
Yeah. So, basically, I mean, this Flex 5G laptop is really for people who are on the absolute bleeding edge. We're now getting into the point where there are many 5G smartphones available. That is a good investment in the future, because if you find a smartphone that you like now with 5G, it's going to be, it's going to work well for the years to come. I'm not sure that I would invest $1,500 in a Snapdragon-powered 5G laptop right now, when we know that pretty much 5G is going to be the standard coming up, and there's going to be a lot more wider range of laptop models powered by many different processors that will be able to have some form of 5G modem in the future. So unless you are really on the bleeding edge, and you're willing to sign up with Verizon to add to your monthly contract, this is really kind of overkill.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, someone's got to be first, but oftentimes the one that puts their head out first, gets it knocked, right? So we'll see how it actually shakes out when you do your testing, what we're capable of testing on the 8CX. See how the battery shakes out, see if it lasts a full day or longer or less. And we're looking forward to seeing a full review of this on PCMag.com in the coming days. So thanks, Tom, for giving us a run-through of the Flex 5G. And thanks for joining One Cool Thing. We'll see you again soon with some more hot hardware.